My name is Emily. It was supposed to be a romantic getaway. My boyfriend James and I decided to go camping in the woods for the weekend. We had been planning this trip for months and were excited to escape the busy city life and reconnect with each other in nature. As we arrived at the campsite, I couldn't help but feel excited. The view was breathtaking, with tall trees surrounding us and a peaceful river nearby. We quickly set up our tent and started a fire. The crackling flames and the sound of the river relaxed us, and we snuggled up together under a blanket. But as the sun set and darkness crept in, a strange feeling of unease also crept in. I tried to shake it off, attributing it to being in an unfamiliar place. However, that feeling only intensified as the night went on. Suddenly, we heard rustling sounds coming from the bushes. We both jumped, but James reassured me that it was probably just some wildlife. But then, we heard a low growling noise. My heart was pounding in my chest, and it took all of my strength not to let out a scream. We could see a pair of glowing red eyes staring at us from the darkness. We were frozen in fear, not knowing what to do. The creature slowly crept towards us, and I could feel James holding on to me tighter. Just as the creature was about to pounce, a loud howl echoed through the woods, scaring it away. We looked at each other in shock, trying to figure out what had just happened. But before we could process it, we heard more howls surrounding us. James and I knew we needed to leave, but we were surrounded by wolves. We grabbed our belongings and ran desperately towards the river, hoping to find safety across it. The wolves were close behind, their growls getting louder and more threatening. But somehow, we managed to get across the river and found a small cave to hide in. We stayed there until morning, trying to come up with a plan to get back to our car. When we finally emerged from the cave, the sun was shining and the woods were peaceful once again. We quickly packed up our things and made our way back to the car, feeling grateful to have survived the terrifying night. As we drove away, James turned to me and said, "I don't think we'll be going camping again anytime soon." And I couldn't agree more. My name is Michael. It was a beautiful summer day, and my family and I decided to go camping in the woods. My wife Nell, our 3 kids, and I were excited for a weekend of hiking, fishing, and roasting marshmallows around the campfire. We arrived at the campsite and set up our tents. Everything seemed perfect until we noticed an old man sitting by himself at a nearby campsite. He seemed out of place in his tattered clothes and unkempt appearance. We tried to ignore him and enjoy our time, but something about him gave us an eerie feeling. As night fell, we gathered around the campfire to share scary stories. That's when we heard footsteps around our campsite. We brushed it off as an animal, but then we heard a raspy voice saying, "You shouldn't be here." Startled, we turned to see the old man standing on the edge of our campsite, staring at us with a cold stare. Feeling uneasy, we quickly retreated to our tents, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. As I tried to drift off to sleep, I heard scratching noises on the side of our tent. I woke Nell up, and we decided to check it out. To our horror, we saw the old man scribbling strange symbols on our tent with a knife. We immediately packed up our things and tried to leave, but our car wouldn't start. Nella and I panicked, but we couldn't leave our kids behind. We decided to stay in the car until morning, hoping the old man would leave. But he didn't. Instead, he walked over to our car, tapping on the windows and laughing maniacally. Nella and I huddled together with our kids, trying to stay quiet, but the old man kept taunting us. As dawn approached, we took our chance and ran into the woods, hoping to find help or a way out. We stumbled upon an abandoned cabin and decided to take refuge inside. But just as we were catching our breath, we heard the old man's voice again. "You can't run forever!" We barricaded ourselves inside the cabin, and I could see the terror in my family's eyes. We were trapped and had no way to defend ourselves from the old man, who we were convinced was a killer. As the night went on, we could hear the old man trying to break in, but we stayed as quiet as possible, hoping he would give up. But he didn't. Suddenly, The door was bursting open, and we braced ourselves for the worst. But to our surprise, it was a forest ranger who had heard our screams and came to rescue us. The old man was arrested, and we were taken back to our campsite to pack up and leave. We never spoke about that night again, and we never went camping in the woods. The experience left a lasting impact on our family and reminded us of the dangers that can lurk in the seemingly peaceful woods. I remember that night like it was yesterday, even though it happened over a year ago. It was supposed to be a peaceful camping trip with my 4 best friends, Rachel, Alex, Tom, and Emily. We were all excited to escape the busy city life and spend some time in nature. However, little did we know that our camping trip would turn into a nightmare. As we arrived at the campsite, the sun was setting, and we quickly set up our tents and started a fire. We were chatting and laughing, enjoying the beautiful surroundings. But something felt off. I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were being watched. As the night went on, we started hearing strange noises coming from the woods. At first, we brushed it off as just animals, but as the noises got closer and more frequent, we grew more and more uneasy. We decided to call it a night and head to our tents. As I was about to doze off, I heard something outside our tent. I quickly woke up Rachel and whispered, "Do you hear that?" She nodded, and we both sat frozen in fear, listening to the footsteps getting closer and closer. Suddenly, the tent started shaking, and we both screamed. In a panic, we woke up our friends and told them what had happened. Alex, being the tough guy, went outside to check, but he didn't find anything. We all tried to calm ourselves down and go back to sleep, but I could feel the fear creeping in. Just as I was starting to doze off again, I heard a car engine revving in the distance. I sat up and realized that it was getting closer and closer to our campsite. It was clear that whoever or whatever was watching us was now coming for us. We all huddled together in one tent, terrified and unsure of what to do. The car finally reached our campsite, and we could see its headlights shining through the trees. We all held our breaths, waiting for whatever was inside that car to make a move. Suddenly, the car came to a stop right in front of our tents, and we could see a figure stepping out of the car. We were too afraid to move or make a sound as the figure made its way towards our tents. It was then that I realized that it was a man, and he was holding a knife. As he got closer, I could see the crazed look in his eyes. I knew we were in danger and had to come up with a plan. In a moment of desperation, we all grabbed our belongings and ran towards the woods. We didn't know where we were going, but we had to get away from that man. As we ran, I could hear the sound of the car chasing us, and I knew we had to hide. We found a small cave and quickly crawled inside. We could still hear the car's engine, but it eventually faded away. We all huddled together, shaking and crying, but relieved that we were safe for the time being. We stayed in the cave until morning, too afraid to leave. As the sun started to rise, we finally gathered the courage to come out. We ran as fast as we could back to the campsite to grab our phones and call for help. When the police arrived, we told them everything that had happened. They searched the area, but they found no trace of the man or his car. We were all shaken and traumatized by the experience, but we were also grateful to have survived the night. Even now, I still get chills thinking about that night and what could have happened if we hadn't escaped. We never found out who that man was or why he was stalking us, and it still remains a mystery. But one thing is for sure, we will never go camping again without taking extra precautions, and we will never forget that terrifying night.